Would you love to add beautiful plants to your front porch or your back patio with those beautiful, big, bold pots that you find at the local nursery or a pottery store, but they're just way too out of your budget? Well, I'm going to share with you today a little solution on how I get those big, beautiful pots without the extra large price tag. We're going to take a break today from some of the projects in this office makeover to hop outside and give some attention to some things that need to be done outside. It is really heating up here in North Florida, and it is well past the time to get these projects done. I also thought that if you are in some of those cooler states, then it might be just starting to get warm for you. So you're just now starting to gear up on your outdoor projects. So I thought this will be perfect timing for you, as well as you may have gotten some plants for Mother's Day that you want to put in some big, beautiful pots. So let's get to it. So let's head outside so I can show you how you can get those big, beautiful planters without the extra large price tag. So my solution to those price tags for buying pots is to head over to my local Walmart, where I picked these two pots up. I actually bought this one last year and started priming it, never finished it, and thank goodness they had the same style again. And then these two I picked up at Costco because they were just a little bit cheaper. They were about $5 less. I think they were running a special or something, right? So what we're going to do is, they're not quite the color that I want them to be. I love those bold, vibrant colors that you saw on those pots at the nursery. I painted this plastic pot years ago with a Talavera style. If you're familiar, it's a hand-painted Mexican pottery, and I painted this plastic pot years ago, and it has held up beautifully. So I know that it will stand it once you just go ahead and get the proper priming on there. The paint will stay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start by cleaning these all up and then start priming. Okay, so now that everything's all cleaned up, while I've got them upside down, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to drill the holes for drainage. After the holes are drilled, we'll go ahead and grab our primer. We're going to do 2 coats of this primer. Well, I'm out of spray paint, or the primer. This is the Zinsser bin. This is a mold blocker, but it does the same thing. It's the oil-based Zinsser bin, it's Zinsser primer, and it's oil-based. That's what we want to get because that's going to have the best adhesion to the plastic. So I'm going to go ahead and head down to my local Walmart, but first I'll just go ahead and drill my drainage holes in these pots. If you haven't seen it yet, check out my video about all the products that I get at Walmart to do my DIY projects. So let me show you what I'm thinking. This is not my house or my deck. We'll show you that in a little bit. But what I have right now is a trough on one side with flowers in it, and then the pot that I painted in Talavera style, and a dark blue pot on the other side. So on the bottom, I want to take that big pot, paint it bright yellow, put it on either side of the steps. And then with the medium pots, I want to paint that a hot pink with some orange flowers on it and put that to the side. And then because there's 3 pots on one side, we got to make it symmetrical. So I picked up another small pot, and that will go in the very front on the right hand side. So Daisy is the color that I will be using for these large pots. I am using a chalk based paint, and I'm using my Wagner Flexio 5000. Peony is the color we'll be using on the medium sized pot. So after we have dampen the brush just slightly, we're going to stipple the paint on a plastic or smoother surface. It's best to stipple rather than do brushing, because brushing will give you brush strokes. In reality, I really should have sprayed this one as well, because it took about 3 coats to get it good coverage. So this is my inspiration, this Talavera style pot with the butterflies and the flowers. I'm using just a piece of trash. It's like a top of a milkshake or something that my son had.
And I'm using that to create a scallop pattern all the way across the top. And I'm using also a piece of chalk so that the lines don't show up after we get it all painted. And then we'll take a lid from a sour cream container to draw the flower. I want the flower very symmetrical, so we're going to draw a circle first. And this just happened to be the right size. Like I said, find what you have and make that size. This Talavera style is really awesome because you don't, as long as you get the pattern going, it's really easy to just kind of fill in the lines is what you're trying to do. So for the flower, we start with a small circle in the beginning and then 5 petals all the way around. So that's where that circle really helps to get the flower nice and symmetrical. You could definitely use a stencil or even make a stencil from, say, your Cricut or Silhouette if you wanted as well. Now we'll just go ahead and draw in the butterflies. I'm freehanding this for the most part, mainly because I just couldn't find exactly the style that I wanted in, an SVG file to make the silhouette stencil. There we go. That's the words I'm looking for. So the other great thing about this style is it's not overly exact. So you can get kind of deformed looking things and it's just fine because when you're doing that hand painted pottery, it's really hard to get the glaze to go in the directions that you want it to go. So sometimes some of the objects get a little deformed looking. So if they are when you're painting, that's okay too. To fill in the large gaps between the flowers, I'm doing really large butterflies. Wherever there is going to be color, we have to base it in white so that you get the true color showing through rather than a pink hue to that color that we're trying to put on. So I'm just basing this scallop in first with the white. We'll only need to do one coat on the butterfly and the scallops, but the flowers will be a background of a white. So we need to do 2 coats on the flowers. Now that everything is based in, we'll go ahead and we'll start doing the lines on the flower, which are going to be in orange. So just draw a circle in the middle, and then I'm outlining everything around the edge. Just using a fine artist brush, and I'm using, again, some more Dixie Belle chalk-based paint. And I actually water it down just slightly so the paint flows really nicely, especially since this pot has a little bit of texture. It's a little more difficult to get a nice smooth line. So having that paint watered just a little bit helps to get your lines nice and smooth. Now we'll just add lines inside of the petals, giving them just a little bit of texture and then darkening at the center of each one of the petals. Continuing that all the way around to each one of the petals. Then I painted the inside of each flower with the peony pink. Now to move on to the butterflies, I am taking a small flat brush and I'm loading the yellow on one side and the orange on the other. And we're going to create just a little shadowing effect almost. It blends the 2 colors on the brush. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but if you did any sort of toll painting before, then that's very similar to what I'm doing here. We're just adding that highlight on the very tips of the butterfly's wings, and then I'll fill in with the orange in the center. If you've been here and listening to some of my videos, I told you a few videos ago when I was trying to figure out air dry clay and trying to figure out several other things, I was also trying to figure out sourdough and making sourdough bread. And I'm finally thankful that I figured it out. It honestly was causing somewhat of a creative block in me. And now that I have figured that out, I can finally move on and something has freed up in my brain. So we'll add a little pink to the center and then take some royal blue, and it's cobalt blue actually, that's the color's name, and create the body on the butterfly. And that's it. We'll just continue that throughout all those little butterflies. We'll move on to this big one. We are taking cobalt blue on the very edge and then a little bit of yellow for the center. Like I said, it just creates that nice highlight that's blended in on the very tips of the wings of the butterfly. Then fill the center in with the yellow and the very, very center with the orange. We'll let that dry and go ahead and fill in the scallop at the top with the orange. It's Florida orange from Dixie Belle Paint. This isn't the exact color. I tried mixing a color that was similar, but it isn't quite exact.
Now for the finishing touches, things have dried quite well. We're going to take a rag and we're going to spritz it a little bit, and we're just going to remove those chalk lines. So I took that lid that I used for the circles, and I'm just using that as my little palette, but I'm going to go ahead, like I said before, just kind of keeping this kind of damp or just slightly watered down so that it flows nicely. And what we're going to do is take this brush. We're going to outline each one of these scallops. I use my pinky as a guide, so that's why it's helpful to do this when it's dry. I have a tendency to want to get ahead of myself and do it when it's wet, and then it creates problems. While I'm here, I'll go ahead and draw in my body. I really need a smaller brush. We'll touch that up here in a minute. Then I'm going to go around each one of these just to really highlight those tips with the royal blue, and then the yellow for the yellow butterflies. These big butterflies get a teal center. Let's see if I can do this at this angle. I'm going to take the end of a brush, dip it in the white paint, and we're going to add dots all along the edge. And we do the same up here. All right, I'm going to finish these up, and we'll come back with the last finishing touch.
Now we're just going to take one of those fine paintbrushes and some white paint, and we're going to make kind of like water droplets, but more, I don't know, almost paisley-like pattern. Just randomly throughout the pot that is very similar to our inspiration. We're just filling those in anywhere there are any gaps in between the flower or the butterfly.
Okay, for the large pots, we're going to do a glazing effect. I'm using some clear coat, that's what's in here, clear coat gloss, and just a tone darker, which is called Kernel Mustard. So if you notice the pots from the nursery, you notice they're not just a solid color. They kind of have a tone on tone glazing effect to them. So that's what we're creating with this. And we're just going to brush this on very sporadically. Then we're going to take a rag. We're just going to wipe it down so it blends in nicely. I'm not worried about this section up here because we're going to do a different technique up there to get that drippy look. Drippy, textured, kind of corroded look. And this we're going to do this in a layered fashion. So we've got one tone on there now. Now we'll come back and add just some darker. I'm just going to take my brush like this. We're just going to add some kind of darker streaks. We're not going to blend these out. And I'm using my brush in some of them we might blend out a little bit, but so we'll get this kind of effect going on. Okay, now for the crusty goodness that's going to go on up here, we're going to take some Dixie Belle's patina in the iron. We'll probably add in a little bit of the copper as well. This actually has metal flakes in it, and you have to stir it really well first, as you do with all the paints, and then we're just going to stipple it on. I'm going to create kind of this drippy, corroded look. Then what you do is you take the activator patina spray in the green while it's still wet. So you're going to work in sections. I've just poured it into a cup. You're going to work in sections, and I'm using disposable brushes because these will ruin your brushes. And we're just going to dab it on. You can spray it on, but I find that I have much more control over it if I dab it on. What this does is it causes a chemical reaction. That's why I've got my gloves on. It causes a chemical reaction, and it causes the metal in the paint to corrode and rust. I'm going to go ahead and let the drips kind of drip down. And this, you can go back over it again after it dries to kind of see, like you may have a section that you didn't really get it because it's hard to tell where you're putting it and where you're not. And it takes a good 24 hours for it to take effect. Actually might wipe those drips up.
Okay, now we've given it time to dry, and as you can see some areas look very rusty and some look, like iron, metal. So that's what we're trying to create, but we're going to kind of layer another layer on top with the copper patina paint, and we're just going to stipple that on as well. I'm really trying to concentrate on the edges, so it's a higher concentration of the copper on the edges, and you'll see why in just a minute, because I want to create that really corroded, drippy look. So I'm going along the edges, and then we'll come back with the green patina activator, and we will go ahead and dab that on everywhere along the edges so that you can, when it activates, it turns kind of a green blue color. And actually, I ran out of some of the green, so I mixed some of the green, and then there's a blue activator spray as well, and I mixed the two together, and it really came out nice in the end. So we just got to let that dry. As you can see, some of the green already kind of peeking through. So we just got to let it do its thing, and then we'll take them outside and seal them with 2 coats of the gator hide sealer and then 2 coats of the gloss to give it that gloss, ceramic look.
Well, what y'all think? I think they came out great. I'm really loving the corrosion that came out on this pot. And then when I put the gloss, the high gloss on these, my roosters want to talk to me today. Not mine, my neighbor's roosters want to talk to me today. So when I put the high gloss on this, I hear you. Are you done? Okay, we'll get back to it. So when I put the high gloss on this pot, it just made everything really pop. And I just love them. I think they're going to look great. They're going to sit next to our deck by the stairs. Hopefully by the end of summer, we will have that fully completed. That is our goal for this summer. So we'll be working on that a little bit by little bit throughout the entire summer. So I'll be able to bring that to you, hopefully, like I said, by the end of summer. But be sure to check back next video because we will be going back to the office makeover. It is so bright and hot out here today, so excuse the goofy sunglasses, but these are my work sunglasses. If I get spray on them, it doesn't matter. But anyhow, take care, y'all. I will see you in the next one.